When the Indian Navy replaced the colonial George's Cross with this Shivaji-inspired octagonal crest, it reclaimed an identity rooted in India's maritime history. For decades, the fleet operated under the shadow of the British Empire. As the Royal Indian Navy, it served as a colonial instrument, until the 1946 naval mutiny exposed deep internal fractures and accelerated the British departure from the subcontinent. Freedom in 1947 brought a brutal partition. India's first leaders inherited a force that had been split in two, leaving the new republic with a fragmented fleet and aging equipment. Throughout the 1950s, this created a massive strategic gap. India controlled a vast coastline and vital trade routes, but lacked the specialized hardware to protect them or project influence beyond its own shores. This era of hesitation ended in 1961. During Operation Vijay, the Navy was deployed to forcefully evict the Portuguese from Goa and the island of Anjadiv, marking its first major combat operation as a sovereign state. Securing Goa demonstrated that the Navy was no longer a colonial relic, but a national force capable of defending India's immediate territorial borders. Defending a border is a start, but the 1971 Indo-Pak War forced the Navy to demonstrate offensive reach on a much larger scale. This map traces Operations Trident and Python. An Indian task force navigated the Arabian Sea to launch midnight missile attacks into Karachi harbor. By striking vessels and fuel depots with maneuverable boats, the Navy crippled the enemy's maritime infrastructure. Yet this offensive success was tempered by loss. During the conflict, the INS Kukri was tracked and sunk by an enemy submarine, resulting in the Navy's heaviest loss of life at sea. The sinking of the Kukri exposed a critical weakness. To operate safely in deep water, the fleet urgently needed to modernize its anti-submarine capabilities. Through the 1980s and 90s, the Navy focused on expanding its reach. By the time it intervened to stop a coup in the Maldives during Operation Cactus, it had become a net security provider for the region. By the end of the 20th century, the Navy had transitioned from a coastal guard into a regional power with the capacity to lead operations far from its home ports. In the modern era, that regional presence evolved into a formal doctrine. In 2015, India launched SAGAR, Security and Growth for All in the region. SAGAR focused on regional stability, prioritizing economic cooperation and maritime security with immediate neighbors like Mauritius and the Seychelles. 10 years later, in March 2025, the government announced the next evolution, the Maha Sagar Doctrine. As this graphic shows, Maha Sagar integrates the regional pillars of SAGAR into a larger global framework. It shifts the Navy's focus from regional security to a broader outreach across the global south, emphasizing technological connectivity and economic diplomacy. The formal blueprint for this shift is the Indian Navy Maritime Security Strategy 2026. This document provides the tactical instructions to turn the Mahasagar vision into a functional military reality. This transition marks India's move toward a holistic maritime strategy, where naval power is used to secure interests across the entire Indian Ocean and beyond. Executing a global strategy requires massive physical infrastructure, which is why the Navy is currently completing Project Seabird Phase 2. Located at Karwar, this will be the largest naval base east of the Suez Canal, providing the deep-water berthing required for a global fleet. To maintain this fleet, India is prioritizing indigenous production. Domestic manufacturing ensures that the Navy is not dependent on foreign nations for its most critical maritime technology. This shift toward self-reliance is visible in the construction of indigenous nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and new submarine fleets, all built in Indian shipyards. The Navy is also integrating autonomous systems, recently deploying weaponized surface vessels capable of patrolling long-range coastal routes without a crew. Today, these capabilities are deployed in anti-piracy missions across the Arabian Sea and in multi-nation exercises like Milan, where India coordinates with dozens of international navies. In less than a century, the Indian Navy has built the infrastructure and indigenous technology to move past its colonial origins, evolving into a force that maintains security and cooperation across the Indo-Pacific.